Hello, folks. Welcome to another Rant and Rave with Dave. I'm talking today about shoulder stability. I think I promised a key insight into kind of a secret weapon into making progress with your shoulders. Whether that's overcoming some kind of recurring problem or reaching a goal that's like push-ups for some people, dips for some people, ring dips, muscle ups. Somewhere along the line, shoulder instability kind of creeps in and stops us from making progress. Even if you don't realize that's what's going on, right? So what I mean by this is if you watch people doing dips, for instance. Watch folks doing dips, both folks that are maybe struggling to get a few dips and folks who maybe they're good at dips. They think they're doing dips really well and they can bang out a lot of them, but watch carefully and you'll see shoulders move. Somewhere in the dip range of motion, you'll see the shoulder blades move. What we want is hold the shoulder blades stable and pull and push your body through that range of motion without the shoulder blades moving around. So why does that matter? Because if you let even a little bit of hunching like I'm showing here, or even more subtle kind of rolling forward, just a little bit of rolling forward happen. And again, you'll see this if you watch carefully, push-ups, dips, happens in pull-ups, chin-ups, really a lot of things we do with our shoulders. That instability in the shoulder blades, sometimes it causes pain, usually maybe in the elbow, maybe in the front of the shoulder, sometimes in the back between your shoulder blades, maybe a little higher up, kind of the top of the shoulder blades, neck. So sometimes you get the recurring pain. Sometimes that's not it. It's more you just can't make progress. Feel like you're not making progress. So what to do about it? Well, first thing is to be aware that you're better served by learning to hold those shoulder blades really stable while you work, while you push and pull through different ranges of motion. There are some times, like a handstand, for instance, where I want to push my shoulder blades. So if you're trying to move your shoulder blades some direction, that's a different subject. That's fine. You'll see this in gymnastics. Expert gymnasts are moving their shoulder blades around as they do different positions and moves. That's a deliberate motion that's controlled by strength. That's not the same thing as your shoulder blades moving on you while you're squatting. While you're dipping. I was thinking of an analogy here. A good analogy would be a lot of folks when they're squatting, they don't have their hip muscles engaged correctly. You'll see the knees fall in, either one or both knees kind of fall in, right? And those people often struggle to stand up. At the same time, at real high levels of competition with Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting, you'll see super strong people whose knees come in and then drive back out as they squat. There are two separate things happening. In the case of the beginner or somebody who's struggling and their knees fall in, what you're seeing is the muscles around the hips don't stay engaged correctly and they run into trouble. When the expert lifter is moving their knees in and out, they're doing some deliberate manipulation of their body position to get better leverage. And so we see that same kind of thing in shoulders, right? Don't take what I'm saying to mean that our shoulders should never move while we're moving. There's levels of development here, but when you're moving, a dip, a push up, a pull up, a chin up, any kind of shoulder, even rowing, bent over rowing on a machine, any kind of pushing or pulling through your arms at any angle, if the effort that you're exerting or the weight of your body or the weight of the load is forcing your shoulders to move around, and it's not something you're doing on purpose, that's a problem and it's holding you back. So let me see here. I want to share my screen. I want to show a little bit of anatomy. If for some reason you're not seeing this, hit the chat button at the bottom and shoot over a message to me, and I believe I'll see that. But let's see here. Give me just a second. Okay. All right. So what I want to show here, this is an anatomy app that I have, and I'm just going to real quickly show a couple of key points about shoulder blades. First of all, watch as I remove some muscle. Key thing to notice about shoulder blades here, I'm going to slowly rotate through. I want you to look between the shoulder, let's say in front of the shoulder blades, between the shoulder blades and the rib cage. And as I slowly move through there, I want you to notice that there's not much attaching this, right? Those shoulder blades are floating in air, right? The only real bony connection is right here at the AC, where the clavicle contacts the acromion process here. And that's a pretty small contact point, and it's a pretty small bone. Clearly not intended to transmit a lot of force. It's a pivot point, it's a locator. So let me put some muscle back in here. Some muscles in the ribs, muscles around the ribs, there we go. So look at the shoulder blade. Now we have some muscles on the shoulder blade holding your arm bone into the joint, holding the humerus into the ball of the humerus into the socket of the shoulder joint. Notice something though. We have some muscle in the arm, some triceps attaching across the elbow and up to the shoulder blade. We've got some muscles on the shoulder blade. There's still no muscle attaching the shoulder blade to the rib cage. Let me add a little bit more. We've got a little bit of muscles in the front of the arm here. I don't want to get into too much of detailed anatomy discussion. I want you to take away this awareness that our shoulder blades are inherently unstable until we start getting to these, rotating around again here. I'm going to add a little bit. Now we're starting to get some connection from the shoulder blades onto your axial skeleton, onto the spine muscle. What I would like you to take away, so we've got some levator scapulae, the neck muscles, serratus posterior, in particular serratus anterior. Kind of light these up and show that from a few different angles here. This is a pretty important one, and what it does is come underneath the shoulder blade and attach to the medial edge, the inside edge, the edge closest to the spine. So when you see somebody's shoulder blades winging out, lifting up across their back instead of their back looking smooth, say they're in a push-up position, and you see the shoulder blades lifting up in the middle, you're seeing the failure or the lack of engagement of this serratus anterior. In other words, muscle. So the point is we have to learn to hold this stuff down, and we need some strength. And what I really want to talk about today is more these muscles, rhomboids, stuff across the back, right? Stuff connecting your shoulder blades to your spine, across the middle of your back, and of course trapezius. Big broad muscle, but notice something, the fibers of this muscle, we think of traps as being these, neck muscles, big, powerful neck, big traps. That's just the upper part of this muscle. There's a really important player here, muscle fibers running horizontal, running across from the shoulder blades toward, pretty much straight toward the middle, toward the spine, and then lower on the traps running down. So muscles can just shorten or not shorten. That's all they do. They contract or release. So, and they do that in line with the fiber direction, right? So the lower part of your traps pull in and down. the central part, this kind of mid thoracic spine part, pulls just in. And here's the takeaway. We're not very good at that. We're pretty good often, maybe too good often, at using the upper part of the traps, is kind of hunching our shoulders up. We often don't have much awareness across the middle. And in our programming and move skill, I include a fair amount of horizontal ring rows at different angles, trying to lead people towards this horizontal, being able to lay your body out so that it's parallel to the ground and still pull your shoulder blades back and pull your hands deep, deep into your armpits, so you get kind of move so you can see this, not just pulling to here, not here, get way back. I want to get as far back as possible, the further the better, because that's coming from these muscles in the middle of your back, pulling your shoulder blades horizontally. And that does a great deal, huge amount, to stabilize those shoulder blades so that your big muscles that we're used to thinking of, the pecs and delts and lats and, you know, all these muscles that we train when we're training upper body strength, you can train those muscles and not really engage your shoulder blades correctly. Except that makes the whole system unstable, and then your body fights you and doesn't want to make progress. So here's the key. Learning to pay attention to where your shoulder blades are, put them where they belong, hold them there while you're moving, adjust your loads, your range of motion, your technique of your movement so that those shoulder blades are put where they belong and held where they belong while you're working. A lot of times this is a bit of an ego check. You have to step back a little bit and use, maybe instead of doing unassisted dips that you thought you could do, but your shoulders were wiggling around. Instead of that, you go back and do some assisted dips, or go back and rebuild your push-ups, or spend more time on bench press, and, you know, do what it takes to build the strength so that you can do that movement correctly. And a major part of that strength building is horizontal pulling. So ring rows, like I was just showing, with complete scapular retraction. You can ring row wrong and just kind of pull with your arms and pull your arms to your chest and kind of miss the point, or even let your shoulder blades move while you're pulling yourself up in the ring row. That's not going to help. You're practicing getting this wrong at that point. So, but getting those shoulder blades back and getting to the point where you can handle your body weight in that motion. So we dumbbell rows, both two dumbbell rows, single dumbbell rows, heavy dumbbell rows, croc rows. You can do the same things on machines, cable pull, barbell bent over row, of course, different variations of that. But the key is to really be aware that you're trying to train this middle part of your back and the muscles that retract your scapula. You know, pull the scapula toward the spine, and build some strength there. And it's a separate kind of strength and skill set. Again, it's a little bit separate than developing strong lats, or strong pecs, or strong delts, strong shoulders. You know, the superficial stuff that we think of with shoulders. So, see, I'm going to close out of this app now, but and answer some questions. Let's see here. Stop share. There we go. Okay, so I have several questions that you guys shot at me this time. Thank you for those. And they have a lot to do with what I was just talking about. One question for Mark. Can I explain the shoulder position for planche or assisted planche in greater detail? So think of the muscle fibers of the traps that I was just showing you. Planche is when you're, for those of you that aren't registering on this right away, it's a push-up position, body out straight, except your feet aren't on the floor. You're balancing on your hands and shoulders. And it involves leaning in, kind of leaning in so that your hands are nearly under your waist so that you can actually balance. It takes tremendous shoulder strength. It puts huge leverage in a position that we're not that used to. So the full planche is a really advanced movement It takes a couple of years of serious work to develop a full, legit gymnastic-style planche. However, the assisted planche, planches, and there's a number of ways to assist this, so you could dig around in the Move Skill library to see those variations, but the Move Skill movement library. So if you went to moveskill.com and dug around there. But these assisted planches we can develop without being anywhere near gymnastic strong. But it still puts a really big load on the shoulders. And again, if we're trying some kind of semi-advanced move like that and your shoulder blades are kind of, think of it as being pushed around by your weight or your position, it's not going to lead to anything good. You probably won't make very much progress, and it might cause some kind of chronic pain, right? Like everything else we do with our shoulders, you have to learn to pull those shoulders down toward your hips, and you're actually squeezing them back a little bit. Squeezing your back feels like beginning a pull, almost initiating a pull, even while you're pushing as hard as you can through your arms and your hands. So if that sounds contradictory, it is contradictory. You're pushing and pulling at the same time. Imagine guy wires on a tower pulling down. If I get one side really tight, I don't have a stable tower. I need all the guy wires pulling in their different directions, and they pull against each other. That's opposing tension. That's contradictory stuff, right? But from that, you get your nice stable tower, right? Pulling down. We have to do that same thing in our body. And it's counterintuitive sometimes. You know, people will get confused or frustrated, like, do you want me to push up or pull down? Which is it? And sometimes it's both. Push and pull at the same time. So you end up not up or down. You're in the middle, but you're pushing and pulling. What we're talking about is turn on some muscle. That can be a complex thing to develop because sometimes we have some steps to go through. But this idea of embracing this opposing tension, these contradictory forces, embrace that. If it feels contradictory and hard, that's a good thing. So that's a key idea there. So shoulder position for planche. Okay, so here's another kind of really similar related question here from Carl with regards to shoulder mobility and strength. When we're doing pull-ups, the description, so he's asking the question about one of the daily workouts. The description, I had asked for pull as hard as possible and, chest to bar, and not just chest, but mid-chest. I'm like, bottom of your pecs, belly button to bar, right? So I used words like that. And he said, I can't do that. Is being able to pull up to that depth, but still being able to string together strict pull-ups and kipping without much issue, does that indicate a mobility issue or a strength issue? Well, the mobility that we're talking about, pulling hands to chest, I think pretty much everybody has that unless you're badly hurt. Like, it's not a mobility issue. You can pull hands down our sides, right? Just standing here. What am I doing though? There's no load on my hands, obviously, so I can pull them where I want. But that's the range of motion. So it's not a mobility issue at all. It's a pure strength issue. And here's why I go on about these chest to bar pull-ups and why they're hard. A pull-up is a bicep component, flexing the elbow. It's a lat component, closing this angle. But you can do that and get your chin over the bar and really not engage your back, have your back round like this, right? So then when we add a third area, a back component, pull the shoulder blades back, drive them back and down, keep driving down now, and then I have to get a little more strength in this shoulder extension back here, right? So that's also back and tricep and back and shoulder strength, getting this range of motion here. So it's squeezing my shoulder blades together and it's pulling the arms into a range of motion that we don't often work in. It's back strength. Straight up back strength. That's why I'm on about it, because chest to bar pull-ups are a really nice way, in addition to, well, think of when we do ring rows and I ask you to pull your hands deep into your armpits. That's chest to bar in this case, ring rows, and there's no bar, so we can go deeper. And that's what we're after ultimately with pull-ups. You know, chest to bar is just one step. There's more steps. Like, I don't want chest to bar. I want to pull up on rings and pull really deep on rings eventually. And then pull so deep on rings that I'm already deep enough to just quickly transition and boom, I just did a muscle up. All right. So this process keeps going and going and going. We're always trying to chase greater range of motion. And, you know, this conversation, I'm circling back again and again to back strength, the ability to pull your shoulder blades back with more and more and more load. Think of horizontal ring rows as very much analogous to a push-up, right? A push-up, the ability to do a push-up is a benchmark. It's a strength benchmark. A lot of folks can't do a good push-up. And when they get to where they can do some good push-ups, some full, legit, stable plank, full range of motion, you know, quote, real push-ups, that's a benchmark. It's an accomplishment. It's, you know, we're not going to go on YouTube and watch videos of people doing push-ups. You know, it's not a world-class accomplishment, but it's a step along the way. You know, so in other words, if you're trying to build a really big bench press or a dips, and you don't have good push-ups, you skipped a step. Go back and get those push-ups right. Well, the ring rows are the same thing in this progression. Like they're just a step, and they're not a very advanced step. But if we skip that step, again, we're missing that chance to develop the scapular retraction, the ability to pull those shoulder blades back and hold them against the ribs and stabilize them so that the rest of my upper body muscles can do what they do well. So, you know, I know good and well when I ask for chest to bar pull-ups that many or maybe even most of you can't do them. I expect that. But I want us to work, to train, and while you're working out, to train with the idea of that's what we're trying to develop. It might be a year or two or, you know, months at least before you can actually do chest to bar. It's fine. It takes however long it takes, but we're on our way to chest to bar pull-ups. And like I just said a minute ago, that's not going to be the end of the journey either. We're going to pull, you know, start doing more ring pull-ups and pull deeper and eventually build this into muscle-ups. Just a super quick note about muscle-ups and more advanced skills, because I get some questions about how do I build, what's the steps toward more advanced skills. I just really, in great detail, broke down the steps to develop a muscle-up. Whether you heard that or not, it is get so good at pull-ups that pulling high enough to transition to a dip is easy. It's trivial. It's nothing. It literally takes, when somebody's properly prepared, they're ready to take the step of doing muscle-ups. And to me, muscle-up is a strength move. Period. I think it's a pretty bad idea for people to be able to kip into a muscle, kip through a muscle up when they don't have the strength to do them strictly. Kipping muscle ups are fine. Don't mistake what I'm saying again. But you have to have the strength to do them strict first before they make any sense at all, because you're launching yourself up on top of rings, and rings are unstable and they move. And then when you fall and wrench your shoulder that way, that is one of the more riskier things, somebody can do in a gym. Like that will send you to some shoulder rehab surgery. But getting away from that negative stuff, it's the process is get really good at pull-ups, really, really good at pull-ups, and develop the strength to pull very deep, get really good at dips so that you have really full depth dips. And then it literally takes 5 minutes to put these things together and teach the muscle up skill. 5, no more, and often less. After we've gone through the months or year or 18 months that it takes to get to the right point. And then the muscle up is just another step. And that's how you build advanced skills of any sort. You don't just lean over on your hands and try and shove your legs out and say, I'm working on a planche. Not that anybody listening has done that, but that's, it's a kind of over top example. We identify the fact, the strength and the skill, the balance that's going to go into creating this feat that we're after, and then we build those qualities step by step. Let's see, long-winded, but I answered Carl. Reghard asked about L-sits as a max hold. The performance program has L-sits as a max hold on a regular basis. What other regressions or progressions are available to help build the capacity to hold for more than 30 seconds? So with the background of what I was just ranting about, look at what goes into an L-sit. Well, obviously some ab strength, some quad strength, some hip flexor strength, some hamstring flexibility to be able to pull your legs up, your knees up high enough to hold that L position. But guess what? The ability to hold yourself in that stable position and hold your shoulders stable as you lift your lower half up into that L position, get into that nice L position, requires upper back strength again. This scapular retraction that I've been going on about it's the thing that people don't notice is holding them back, but it's holding them back, right? So really, if there's a secret to L-sits, it's upper back strength, right? With the obvious caveat here that we still have to develop those, quad and hip flexor and ab strength, and you need, if you're so tight that you can't fold at the waist in a 90-degree angle when you're standing on your feet leaning over, then of course you're not going to be able to hold an L-sit when you have to fight gravity to pull yourself into that position. So we still have to go through the steps of building the movement. But people don't realize when your upper back fails, and by fail, I mean just let your shoulder blades move. Then your whole body tips forward some, and now you have no ability to lift those legs up, right? You watch a gymnast in an L-sit, they're leaning, they're pressing up and back, their chest is up, and their whole upper body is leaned back, and they're lifting their legs up to, whatever height they have that strength and flexibility to get to. So, and I work this, again, upper back strength, hamstring flexibility, ab strength. I'm working the different elements into our programming pretty often. So, if you stick with the programming, you'll get it. However, you've got to pay attention. In order to make progress, we have to get these details right. And my whole rant today is this little bit of sloppiness or lack of precision or stability in the shoulder blades will stop our progress in a bunch of different areas. L-sit's one of them. Oh, let's see. Oh, nice. I actually didn't realize this, but the last question is about muscle ups. Let's see, from Ben. Muscle ups are tough for me. I can get one on occasion by kipping, but it seems to be inconsistent. I definitely can't string together multiple as I'd like to be able to do. Any tips or exercises to help with making this consistent and maybe even avoid kipping? You guys know what I'm going to answer, right? I already answered it, but I'll go through this again. Excuse me. The key to the muscle up, and I don't know, sometimes folks don't want to hear this, but it's still the key to the muscle up, is it's a strength move primarily. When we first started doing it many years ago in the CrossFit community, we didn't know, no one had thought of even kipping pull-ups yet, and we were working on strict muscle ups. Hold the false grip, pull deep, below the line of your sternum, below the sternum, because that's also below the armpits. Then a simple shift, and now you're in the bottom of a very deep dip. And if you have the strength to press out of that deep dip, you've got it. So what do? We go through the steps to build really stable, strong, full range of motion dips. The deeper, the better. The old standard of, bring your elbow to 90 degrees or chest just below your elbow. That's okay. It's a start. It's better than not being able to dip at all, but it's not what we're after. We want that range of motion. So working on dipping deeper and deeper and deeper with, again, stable shoulder blades. So if I get down deep, but my shoulder blades roll, I'm not going to be able to develop that strength on the rings. I'm not going to be able to hold everything together. I have to be able to hold those shoulder blades stable. So again, upper back strength. And like I've gone on about already at length, pull-ups. And then again, when you can pull so deep that line of contact is below the line of contact when you pull yourself to the bottom of a dip. In other words, your dip and your pull-up overlap. Then here's what everybody wants to know about pull-ups. Like, what's the secret to the transition? Yeah, I just told you. If you're so strong that you can pull that deep, and you're so strong that you can dip that deep, and these things overlap, these two lines of action overlap, the transition is literally trivial. So hopefully food for thought. I really appreciate the questions. Keep them coming, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you.